discuss it. And I don't know why we didn't, because that would have been the time to try to find out something, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But,
after Whitmore turned Roswell over to the military,
yeah.
you saw him after this. Did he ever?
Did I see
You saw Whitmore, certainly.
Oh, sure.
The first chance you had to ask him about the wire recording.
I do not know, in retrospect, why I didn't. I just figured it was a dead story, and...
What I'm saying is that Whitmore never told you what the rancher said?
Oh, he did just plain discussion, but the rancher didn't say much. The rancher merely said, hey, I was out and I was riding and I saw this and this is what it looked like and I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I came to town to tell some people and mentioned it to some people, and pretty soon there was great interest. And so I don't think that he himself went in there and did a lot of pseudo-scientific experiments with this material. There were all sorts of stories about bodies being loaded into planes and all that sort of stuff. And part of that first bunch went right down to Fort Worth, to Carswell. And the rest of them, I understood, went back to, oh hell, who's at Akron?
You mean Dayton, right field?
Right field.
Yeah, Dayton. Yeah.
You say others, you mean other aircraft, or?
Yeah, the presumption was.
Do you hear any bizarre stories of aliens running loose in Roswell at the time, or anything like that?
No, we did not. We probably would. We'd probably been too scared to notice it. After all, that was all pre-ET, and we didn't know how friendly these folk are.
So basically, all you really know is a little bit of what Whitmore told you about the rancher finding the debris, coming into town, and then attempting yourself to go out to the site and being turned back, and receiving the phone call. Now, are you sure it was Clinton Anderson's office and not?
No, but I would assume so. He's our senator.
Could it have been Dennis Chavez?
Oh, well, it could have been Dennis Chavez, I presume.
So,
that was good enough for us, because at that particular time, you didn't go around wrestling with the FCC if you could help it. They gave you enough trouble on other things. Sitting out on a hill and monitoring you with a lousy 250 watts at that time.
To make sure you weren't putting out bad information.
Oh, bad information, and or ASCAP was out there trying to find if we were playing some of their stuff and not reporting it. So we had all of the government that we needed.
Any information about the rancher in the next couple of days?
No, I don't.
Did you have an impression where he was?
I do not recall. It's very possible. But all I know, he didn't come back into the station or anything like that.
Did you ever see Brazel after that?
I never did. But that's not unusual. These guys all live hell and gone away, as you know. And we were busy at that time. And I had a small staff, and 3 or 4 guys working from the base who were working part-time and so forth. And as I say, in retrospect, if we'd had any idea of what we had and what general interest there would be, why then it would have been easy, and we would have, obviously, we would have sat down and said, let's see if we can find out this and that, and put 2 and 2 together and get something.
Did the military ever come by the station to pick up press releases or anything like that?
No.
No indication that the military came back to make sure there was nothing left behind that might?
No, I don't think so, because we were very close to the PIO department, and because they were a source of news, and even if they had, why, I don't think it would have made a great mental note after all of these years, because it was not that uncommon a situation, don't you see?
Through the years, and certainly since the resurrection of all the stories involved, any people that you've talked to, any former colleagues or anyone else that ever voiced an opinion or related any tidbits of information to you?
Oh, that I didn't have?
Mm-hmm.
No, because it was usually, do you believe this stuff? And it so happened that I believed it to some extent at that time, and then ultimately I've just felt more and more that this was a possibility. It was nicely hushed up, let me put it that way. That's a general way of putting it.
So you weren't that concerned that the military came in and suggested that you not release the story. That sort of thing happened on a regular basis.
Oh, yes. Oh, sure.
Whether it was an aircraft accident or maybe something that...
Well, see, we were trying to cover all of that stuff at the local level because that's what we had. That's all we had. And and the two stations with which I was associated over a period of time, we always had mobile units, and we could broadcast and so forth. And even in those days, if there was a story, why, we chased it pretty hard.
But for this one, you didn't really think there was a story, because
I didn't think we were going to be able to do anything with it. I thought that whatever they were going to report, because the question was in many minds here, that whatever they were going to report, that's what we would tell them, so the people would know.
So there was no place for you to go with the story.
No, because we really didn't have the story. We had a discussion with a guy who had found some stuff, but they did a good job of closing that thing up. Hell, Marcel was out of here in, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, I imagine. There were some people that were shipped out. Maybe that had been planned for 90 days, but the coincidence of it made people say, "Boy, we'll get him out of here."
Was there much talk among the townspeople?
Oh,
Then?
my, yes. Sure. It's the most exciting thing that happened since they sold the prize bull at the 4-H sale.
Covering all the big news.
Yes, I mean, secondary story, but next is the bull.
Was there any general tone to the public reaction? That they believed it, they didn't believe it, whatever?
I wouldn't have any idea because we never did run a poll or anything like that. I would suggest that there were some people who said, "Boy, this must be a big story, or they wouldn't have made such an effort," and others who said, "Some nut."
So a weather
it
balloon.
was a weather balloon, and that's good enough for me if they told me it was a weather balloon, by George.
Which side were you on?
I was in the middle between at that time. I obviously have gone to the there was such a thing now, but only on the basis of small bore logic that, as to repeat myself, if we think with this little dot, and it's getting smaller and smaller all the time, even though this thing isn't working too well up there now, but the fact is that for us to consider the fact that we are the only people with the intelligence to do that, and there's been so much stuff to the contrary since those days that I don't know. All I know is I think that to keep repeating myself, which I don't mean to do, but you can cut it, I presume. But the point is that why should we think in this little weensy part of the universe that we are the only people who were ever created with any intelligence? I know people who think there are other intelligences in space that are perhaps way ahead of us. And this might have been, maybe somebody came down and said, "Hey, we saw some flares down on that little old place over here on the atomic test. We saw some flares, we thought we'd send somebody down and take a look, see what was going on." And so they did, and they had the misfortune to do some bad navigating or something.
Well, that's a new way of putting it.
How did you know which ranch to go to?
Because we talked to the guy when he came to town.
And he actually told you, he gave you directions or told you
Oh,
enough
all all of these old timers knew where exactly where the ranch was.
Mhm.
Everybody knew where all of these ranches were. Big ranches at that time. And, no, I was busy in the station, and that was a very busy 7-day-a-week job because we covered sports and we covered this and we covered that, and I did all the selling of all the advertising, what little there was. And so my job was to stay right there and run the thing. Whitmore himself was an absentee owner, and that's the whole story.
Looks like that's it then.
Is this deposition over then?
I believe so. I think you've done a heck of a job.
Well, no. But
I'll turn this off for you. How's that?
fine. Were they in your program? Where the discussion? They thought it, and they never bought the idea that it was a reflection from somebody's glasses down on the ground.
I'm just putting the date on this now so that we've got a picture of you with the date, so that we.
Well, I wish I could be more helpful because I'd love to see you guys come up with some real solutions if you could find it.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Really are.
Are you?
Putting the little bitty pieces together.
In fact, we feel
very
we can
slowly.
put the whole timeline together. And we feel
Which is why your story is important, because you have a couple of little pieces that help fit it into the whole chronology. So, I can never convince you how important your story is to us.
Well, I realize because I'm impressed that you are willing to take the pieces, but that thing is pretty well shattered out. You've got to pick them up, don't you?
It's shattered and it's old.
and find it.
Oh yes,
That's the big problem.
Hallucination. I know I saw it.
Well, we're rolling now. We've got the tape going. So you're Mrs. Lyman Strickland, Marion Strickland,
Yes.
and we're here in Roswell, New Mexico,
On
Again.
September 27th.
which it says right there on the official thing. And we'll turn that off. And so, let's go. You were saying you knew Mac Brazel.
Yes.
He was a neighbor.
Yes.
And you lived out near his ranch in the summer of
The
1940.
ranches joined on a corner. They cornered.
Okay.
In which direction?
It was southeast of Corona, and the cornering was in the same direction, southeast
Okay.
of Corona.
So you were farther from Corona than Mac was.
No, he was further.
Oh.
That ranch belonged to the Fosters at the time.
Right. Now, you knew Mac how long before the summer '47?
We moved there in 1939, and I had 3 small children. Excuse me.
Can we help you out with anything there? Or?
I'll turn that off.
Yes. Back on. No, that's okay. We were talking about Mac Brazel.
Well, we moved there in 39, and I had, my youngest child was only 3 or 4 months old. And I didn't get around to meet neighbors, but my husband did. And he undoubtedly knew Mac from very soon after we went there. We bought the place in 39. So, Mac came by. He would stop, and sometimes at the barn, sometimes he came in the house. I just knew who he was.
He's a very friendly guy.
Yes, he was a very self-sufficient country man. He was very dependable and self-confident. He was not stupid. He was not a highly educated person.
So moving ahead to the summer of 1947, leaping right ahead, you're of course aware of the events that took place in July of 47.
Yes.
Now you have no personal knowledge of what happened. You didn't see anything. You didn't go out to the crash site or anything like that.
No.
You didn't.
No, I think Mac went to, see, we were on a spur that was off of the main line that went from the Foster